Welcome to the Widowed Parent Podcast with your host, Jenny Lisk.
Hey everyone, it's Jenny Lisk, and this is episode 52 of the Widowed Parent Podcast. So I had such a great discussion with Megan Simmons for this episode, and it was such a pleasure to interview Megan. Her dad died when she was just 4. She was almost 5, and she grew up with her mom and 3 siblings. And then later her mom died when she was a young adult, and when Megan herself was a parent of a daughter about the same age that she was when her dad died. So she had a lot to reflect on, her journey and her experiences, including that experience of parenting her young daughter and almost watching herself grieving in the form of her daughter, then grieving her grandmother, and how that led her to write some children's books about grief. She also talked about growing up and moving to be closer to family a few years after her dad died. Some of the struggles, including believing that she should feel sad as a child and even feeling guilty sometimes when she felt happy. The struggle to sometimes help others feel better about her situation, to feel obligated to help the other person feel better, and the awkwardness around that. How growing up without her dad affected her confidence, some of the things that she thought that her mom did especially well, raising 4 children on her own after her dad died. So lots and lots of great discussion with Megan today, and I'm so glad that she was willing to come on the show and talk with me and with all of us. So I hope that you enjoy my discussion with Megan Simmons. My guest today is Megan Simmons, who is joining us from Southern California. Megan, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad to be talking with you today. And I think it's really a privilege as a widowed parent to talk to people who lost a parent at a young age, and hear about their journeys and their experiences. And I think it's so important that those of us who are widowed parents try whatever we can to understand what our kids' experiences are like, because we may have lost the same person, but we lost a different relationship and have a different experience of it. So I'm always glad when somebody like yourself who lost a parent young is willing to come on and talk about it. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I think it's awesome that you're creating this website and this podcast out of something so hard.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So why don't we just start right out here? Can you start and set the stage for us a little bit and back way up before your dad died? Can you tell us what was life like? How old were you? Where were you living? What was kind of your family like way back then before everything changed?
Sure. Well, my family and I were living in a town outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It was my mom, my dad. I had an older brother who was 7. I was 4. I had another brother who was 2, and then my mom was actually pregnant with my youngest brother when my dad passed. And we just had a regular suburban life. We went camping all the time. We had neighborhood cookouts. We went swimming all the time. It seemed carefree to me as a 4-year-old.
I'm surprised you can remember. I can't remember much from when I was 4, but that's wonderful that you...
I sometimes think that was a blessing I was given, because I hear that a lot. And I do have some good memories of my dad, and I'm very thankful for the memories I have. Yeah,
wonderful. So then can you tell us what happened? How did everything change?
Well, I believe I base the time he was sick off of what my mom told me, because I don't remember exact timelines from when he was sick. I remember some of the time, but I don't remember timelines. But from what my mom said, he started feeling sick when she was about 3 months pregnant. And by sick, it was intense stomach pains and nausea, and he was starting to lose weight. It took them about 3 months to figure out what exactly was going on, and they went in for testing and all sorts of, the process of finding out when someone's ill, and they found out that he had pancreatic cancer. So she was 3 months pregnant when he got sick. It took them 3 months to figure out what it was, and then he actually passed away 3 months later, which was 3 weeks before my youngest brother was born.
Wow.
So it was a whirlwind. Yeah, it was a bit of a whirlwind.
Yeah. Okay. And then your mother then had a 7-year-old, an almost 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a newborn?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
She had a lot on her plate, and it went from being this picturesque family to a bit of a nightmare for her.
Yeah. So what, if, as much as you know, either from your memory or from maybe your mom filling you in over the years, what were those early months or years like? I mean, did you have family around that was able to help out, or how did things unfold?
You mean after he passed away?
Yeah.
Yeah. So our neighborhood was amazingly supportive, and we had great friends and family. We had active church members that were a part of it. My mom's best friend lived next door, and they were a great support as well. So we stayed there for about 5 more years after my dad died, and then my mom ended up having us move to the other side of Pennsylvania to be near family, and that's where the rest of our childhood was. So she could have the support, and my grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins were there, but she stayed put for about 5 years and then made the move.
So you were around 10 then when you relocated across the state?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
9 or 10, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How was that? Was that, well, I could imagine it either being a great thing or a terrible thing.
The move?
Yeah.
I mean, the move was hard in terms of leaving friends, but it was great because we ended up living about 3 miles from my grandparents, and we could ride our bikes to their house, and I had aunts and uncles all around. So in terms of that was a really good move, and I think it was really good for my mom to have that support as well, because raising 4 kids on her own was challenging. And she never did remarry either, so she had the family support that I think she needed, and we all needed. So it was nice.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's terrific. One of the things, I've been hearing from some listeners lately about when one parent dies and the other parent then has very young children, and the challenges are different than if the kids are teenagers, and I'm not saying one is easier or harder. It's which parts are going to be harder and which parts are not going to be as hard. I imagine just the logistics of having 4 small kids would have been really difficult. Right.
And I think that's why it really was a great move for her to move us to be near family, because then she, I remember my uncle picking me up from band practice, or she had the support that she needed then. But that being said, she still had 4 kids on her own, so she was amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wonder what you remember about school and peer interactions, either early on, if you remember back that far, or throughout, grade school and high school. Any observations on how that went, whether kids were understanding and supportive, or whether that was tricky to navigate?
From what I remember, people were always very kind and instantly sad when they would hear that my dad had passed. And I felt the need to reassure them and make them see that I was okay, and that it really was okay, even when at times it wasn't. So I would instantly be like, it's okay, because there's a look of pity that you get, and I got used to instantly recognizing it and trying to defer it. So I would try and make other people feel less sad, even though I actually spent a lot of my childhood feeling like I was supposed to feel sad. So, but wanting to hide that, I guess, and make people think that I was less sad than I was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And it's interesting. I mean, it's the same thing. I hear that a lot, whether it's the kids or the parents,
Mm-hmm.
feeling then that burden to help other people feel okay with your situation because they obviously feel uncomfortable in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people in general are uncomfortable with loss and not knowing how that person is doing and if they're okay, or how to process it, and it's awkward and uncomfortable, and so I always tried to make people feel less uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is I imagine a difficult burden for a kid to take on, though, to feel like they have to be I don't know, improving the comfort level or emotions of the kids and adults around them that that are uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And also, during that too, like sometimes it was sad where like I'd see my friends' dads like pick them up from practice or be cheering them on at a school function or whatnot. And so I would feel that sadness and that loss and wishing for my dad during that time. So it was challenging for sure.
How did your family acknowledge or celebrate things like your dad's birthday or his death anniversary over the years?
So for his birthday, sometimes we would get balloons. I remember even on his last birthday that he was with us, we got him it seemed like a huge bunch of balloons at the time, but I don't know how many it actually was, and him letting us release them into the sky. And so I know, I think I've done that a couple times to honor him. And in terms of his death day, I don't remember actually doing something specific for that. It was right before Christmas too, so I think it all kind of got wrapped up into that. So I don't remember something for that, but but I remember more the release of the balloons a couple times that I've done myself too. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like on a day-to-day basis, my mom, he was a really great artist, and so she always made sure to have his paintings up, and I know my brothers and I all have paintings of his that we still hang in our homes to this day. So just a daily
awesome.
honoring.
Yeah, that's great. I was thinking of something you said a few minutes ago, that for quite a while as a kid, I think you said you thought you were supposed to be sad or something like that. And I'm wondering if there was Yeah, go ahead.
I almost felt like I felt guilty being happy sometimes. And I felt like I was supposed to be sad. Yeah.
Yeah. So at what point did that shift? I mean, was there ever maybe when you were an older kid or a teenager, or not until you're an adult? Like, at what point did that perception or whatever kind of shift for you?
Probably as a teenager, it lessened. I don't think it completely went away until I became a parent myself and realizing like he would have wanted us to be happy and to live the life that he didn't get to live. He was really young when he died. He was 37. So he would have wanted us to enjoy our life, and he was a really happy-go-lucky, very great, fun-loving man. So I don't think he would have wanted us to spend our lives being sad, but I didn't realize that until I did get older. So.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. How about, I'm wondering if you think there are any surprise kind of gotchas that maybe widowed parents wouldn't necessarily think would be hard for their kids. Like, I think most people could say, all right, maybe a wedding or a graduation or a large milestone, might be difficult with one of the parents gone. But what other kinds of things maybe have popped up that you think, widowed parents might want to consider could be issues?
Right. Well, I mean, definitely the things that you mentioned with the big celebrations, those are instant triggers, I guess you could say. But it's the little day-to-day stuff, the picking up at sports, or if they get an award in school or something like that, and not seeing that. Or even, I don't know if they do it where you live, but we have donuts with Dad on Father's Day or things like that. And those still, I'm sad to this day to miss out on, or even like Grandparents' Day. As an adult, I'm sad for my kids not getting to know them. So it's the little moments like that.
Right. And it sounds like it just continues on. I mean, when it turns into, okay, now you're not a student having your own dad not there for Father's Day, but now you're a parent not having grandparents there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And how about, let's see, I've lost my train of thought here.
That's okay.
Well, let me ask you maybe a couple of reflection type questions. What do you think you learned by having to face grief as a young person?
What do I think that I learned? I think I learned life is short, very young, and and with that, tried to never take anything for granted, and I always tried to appreciate my mom since she was there, and it made me, because I know a lot of teens go through the phase of like, I hate my parents, and I always was like, I'm so thankful that she's here, and I would never want to make her feel bad or to not let her know that I appreciate her. So I tried to really hard not go through that kind of phase, I guess.
So, looking back, I guess, what do you think maybe has been the hardest for you?
I would say growing up without a dad affects a girl's confidence immensely, because dads are typically the ones who build up their daughter's confidence. My mom did a great job with what she had and everything, but I think a dad instills that confidence in themselves and that drive and whatnot, and that's definitely been a challenging thing that's taken me a long time to gain on my own.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I guess continuing on reflections, is there any, best advice or worst advice that you ever got, or, in hindsight, any kind of the conventional wisdom about grieving that you found to be true or found to not be true?
Right. Well, the worst is always when people are just I don't want to say they're nonchalant, but just saying, you'll be okay, it'll be okay, which is a natural thing for people to say, but at the time it really isn't something that you need to hear. And I think one of the best advices that I've gotten, and I hear it more and more, is that you don't get back to normal, but you find a new normal. So you're always going to have that hole, you're always going to have that void, but life will get back on track in a new way. You'll learn to keep going in a new way, and it'll be a different kind of normal, but it will get back into some sort of normal.
Okay. If you could say one thing to your younger self, what would you say?
To my younger self, I would say it's okay to be happy. Because again, getting back to where I was saying I felt like I had to be sad, I wish I would have realized that sooner, because I spent a lot of time being sad, so I wish I would have known that it was okay, and that my dad would have wanted me to be happy.
Yeah, okay. I want to ask you about your mom a little bit. I guess starting with, what do you think that she did especially well over the years, after losing your dad? I mean, I'm thinking of, like, what can we as widowed parents learn, right, from the people who've gone before us? Are there some things that you think she did especially well?
I do. So one thing she never really talked about growing up, but we talked about after I became an adult, was she vowed to herself and to us to give us a sense of security, stability, and love. And whenever time was hard or times were challenging, she would kind of remind herself that she was giving us security, and she was giving us stability, and she was continuing to give us love. And through that, she was able to give that to us by getting us near family, by making sure that all my brothers and I are college educated and pretty well-rounded individuals with families of our own. And she instilled a lot of good characteristics in us. And I don't know how she did it, because she did it with 4 kids, but she did an awesome job, and I am so thankful that she was able to give that to us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great. That's great. Is there anything that you wish that she had known, maybe something that you didn't tell her back then, but now in hindsight, you wish you had told her, or something that you wish she had known about what your experience was like as a kid after your dad died?
I don't know that she even knew about the degree of my sadness, because I tried to not be sad in front of her too, because I saw her struggle, and I wish I would have felt more comfortable, because she tried, she knew I was sad, and she tried to get me therapy for a little bit, but I was also stubborn. So I wish she would have known that. So, because I think that we probably would have been able to help each other a little bit through that as well, because she was sad too. Yeah.
Okay. And I believe that your mom has now passed away herself as well, right?
She has. She died about 10 years ago.
Okay.
From pneumonia.
Okay. So I wonder so now that's 2 major losses. I mean, I think you were, how old were you at the time? 20 something?
Yeah, I was 29 when my mom passed, and in a bit of a full circle moment, my daughter was almost the exact same age I was when my dad passed. So I was grieving for my mom as I was watching my daughter grieve for her as well, which was almost like watching myself grieve. So it was a pretty intense time.
Yeah. Huh. And I think that then has led you to writing some books on these topics, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So after my mom died, it took a few years. I felt as if I could have done better helping my daughter grieve, because it was so hard to grieve for my mom while helping her grieve too. And I felt guilt over that, and so I was on maternity leave when I had my son, and I just started kind of writing down a little bit of a story about my daughter's experience, and so I wrote it into a children's story about her learning and how we kind of worked our way through it, and wrote a story called "Where Did Nana Go?" in honor of my mom, and I included a little bit of a workbook for other grieving kids to hopefully help them through that time, because I've found that when kids have a story to share with, even if it's something simple and something not necessarily exactly what they're going through, it helps them to feel more comfortable with sharing their own feelings and their own experience as well. So that was my goal with that, and to honor my mom. And then I've actually written a second one too, called "Where Did My Papa Go?" in honor of my dad as well.
And so what age group of kids are these books aimed at?
I would say probably between 4 and 9 or 10. 9 or 10 would be older, and they could be geared up towards the kids, but it's just a simple story that can be catered towards each person's individual experience. And then with the workbook in the back, it's just ways to continue to honor their loved one. And so like the older kids could write in their journal, and the younger kids can write in a picture journal, like for how they're feeling and whatnot. So I tried to make it a little bit wide range.
Yeah, terrific. Okay, I'll put links to those in the show notes in case people want to check those out. I think they're available on Amazon Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes, they're actually they're available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble too now. So.
Okay, terrific. Let's see. Let me ask a few more questions here, if that's all right.
Sure.
I guess thinking about both your dad and your mom, if you could talk to them now, what would you say to them?
The first one, I guess, would be that they're extremely missed, and that even though time is going by so quickly, that I still think about them every day. And I would want them to know that I'm raising my kids the way that I was raised, and will continue to honor them, and they won't be forgotten.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you think that, I guess I'm curious how losing them both at such young ages has affected you as a parent, your parenting of your kids?
I think every parent tends to cherish their children, but I feel like I take that to another level sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Because your time is so precious, and you really don't know if you're going to be given tomorrow. Both my parents died pretty fast. I mean, my dad within a few months, and my mom actually died within less than a month. So you need to make the most of each day, and instill as much as you can in your kids while you can, and keep going on the tired days. I always feel lazy compared to my mom, because she raised 4 kids on her own. So, and I'm not raising my kids on my own, so I make no excuses.
and you have two children, is that right?
Yeah, I have 2 kids. Yeah. So she had double, and then she actually she was able to go on to graduate school as well, and graduate with honors. So
awesome.
Whenever I'm having a tired day, I'm like, suck it up.
What was her graduate program in?
She was a teacher. So she started as a reading specialist, and then she taught 2nd grade and 5th grade as well. So.
Terrific. Do you think that has played any role in your being interested in being a writer and a book publisher?
Absolutely. I think that it was first to honor them, but also, my mom had such a profound love of books, and was reading constantly. So I think that, and then also, which I didn't know at the time when I published my first one, but I, in notifying everybody that I had written a book, my godfather, who knew my dad, actually told me that my dad had been planning to write books as well, which is something that I didn't know. So I guess it's in the family.
Yeah, terrific. Oh, that's great. Well, maybe your kids will grow up to write books too about their journeys.
So, yeah. Yeah, I hope so. I would love it.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Awesome. Well, hey, I just want to wrap up here with one more question, if that's all right. And this is something actually that I ask all my guests. I think it's great to hear what a variety of people have to say about this. And so that's this. If you could say one thing to adults who may have a grieving child in their life, what would you say to them?
I would say to make sure to let the kids say goodbye to their loved one, and that can be in whatever way is the most appropriate for the kiddos, whether that's actually, like if they're in a hospital, or if they go to the funeral, letting them say goodbye, or if that's not appropriate for them, letting them release balloons to them, because kids need that closure, and I think it's really important to give them that. And I would say, I know something that helped my daughter was to create a memory book of their loved one, so that they can have it to reference whenever they wanted, or whenever they were feeling sad, because I know looking at pictures of her Nana really helped my daughter, and I think she still looks at it from time to time, and it's been a decade. So, and also just to let them talk, because I think it's easy to want to reassure them, and again, to make them feel better and everything, but sometimes just let them be sad. It's okay to get that out, and it's necessary to get it out. It's part of the cycle of grief. So.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I think that's actually a great place to end. So my guest today is Megan Simmons, and she lost her dad when she was almost 5 years old, and then her mom later when she was 29. So Megan, where can listeners find you if they would like to learn more about you and your work?
Okay, well, I'm actually in the early stages of starting my own publishing company as well, and that is hummingbirdsnestpublishing.com.
Okay.
And I'm also on Facebook as well and Instagram. So we're just getting started, but we are on there.
Okay, terrific. And then your books, of course, are on Amazon, and I'll put those links in the show notes to both of the books as well as to your website. And people can find you there.
They are on. Thank you. And they're on Barnes & Noble as well.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay. I should look for that as well. I guess since I live in Seattle, Amazon becomes my go-to.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I just keep, it was such a big store when I was growing up. I was kind of happy that it was on there. Yeah.
At Barnes & Noble.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a big Barnes & Noble up the street from us, and it just closed about 2 years ago, and it was there for decades. I used to go there 25 years ago and read books. So, Anyway. Okay. Well, Megan, fantastic. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Megan Simmons as much as I did. You can find show notes and all the links at widowedparentpodcast.com. Look for episode 52. So, regular listeners of the podcast may have noticed that today's episode is actually a little bit late. Typically, I post new episodes every Wednesday, which actually means that I post them late Tuesday night, Pacific time, in my time zone, U.S. Pacific time, so that they're available Wednesday morning, wherever you are located. This is one of these examples where, you know what, the real life of a widowed parent gets in the way. I was thinking about trying to stay up really late last night to get this posted, and actually a widow friend of mine said, you know what, this is a great example. It's a podcast for widowed parents. It's a podcast by a widowed parent. Stuff happens, and in our case, we've got some snow here this week. It's pretty slick out there and pretty icy, and I was attempting to go out on Monday to do a couple of errands, and I actually collided my car into the curb. Everybody's okay, and fortunately I did not hit any other vehicles or anything else, but my car is very badly damaged, and so I'm dealing with insurance and lots of different decisions to be made and options for how to proceed, and I'm without a car, which creates its own hassles. So anyway, it's one of those things where things hit and the episode didn't get done. So here it is today. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you give yourself a break when stuff like this comes up, because it does for all of us. And I'm trying not to beat myself up about being late with this, and I hope that that's something that that might work for you as well. So, anyway, lots of good stuff coming up on the show. I did my first podcast swap this week and last week. So the Dougie Center in Portland, Oregon has a terrific podcast. It's called Grief Out Loud. And last week I was interviewed on their show. And then this week, yesterday actually, I interviewed two folks from there. So Brennan Wood, who is the executive director, and Jana DeCristofaro, who is the host and producer of their podcast, Grief Out Loud. Interviewed both of them together yesterday. So that was terrific. They've got so much to share. The Dougie Center is a real leader in children's grief work and has been so for a really long time. So it was great to talk with them. Some other good episodes coming up. I talked with Outward Bound recently, and so that is probably going to go up in the next week or two. And I'm also looking forward to bringing you discussions about Camp Widow and I don't know, lots of other things. So anyway, I hope that things are going well in your world and that 2020 is off to a satisfactory start. It's been a bit of a rough start for me with as I said, all this snow and disruption this week, and then last week was actually the 4th anniversary of my husband's death, so I feel like the year hasn't quite gotten off to a start on the right foot yet, but I hope things will change soon. So anyway, thank you for listening, and until next week, keep smiling.
Thank you for listening to the Widowed Parent Podcast with your host, Jenny Lisk. Connect with us on social media and at widowedparentpodcast.com.